So I had a reputation in high school. I'm sure that surprises you all. It was that reputation. Now, here's the thing. I didn't have sex with anybody in my high school. I didn't make out. I didn't get felt up. I didn't go to any of their wild parties and get drunk and lose track of myself. So how did this happen? Well, I talked a big game. I was the girl who always knew what was what. I was the one who wasn't afraid to say what everybody was thinking. It's funny, I reconnected with a guy from high school, and we hang out and we're reminiscing, and he says that the most memorable moment between us in high school was went up to him in the hallway, and I said, so how many times have you masturbated today? I have no recollection. Absolutely no recollection of doing that. And apparently he said, what I don't want you to know. He said, what I didn't want to say to you is, well, it'll be one more time now. So I found out that I was the girl that all the guys fantasized about. I was the girl that they were probably having fun with at home when I wasn't there. But I wasn't the girl that they asked out. And the truth is that I wasn't very wild at all. I was actually very, very scared. And so wildness became a shield. It became a persona, something I could use to shock you just enough to keep you at a distance. Because what they didn't know was that the summer between 9th and 10th grade, 14 going on 15, I was getting a little wild that summer. There was this 18-year-old Marine up the street, and he did have a two-tone Buick car too. That I can't ever tell the story without the two-tone Buick. Like you have to understand those two things together. He would drive around the block, and I started getting in the car. I lied to my mom, started flirting with him. I would drive to New Jersey with him. You could go across the state line. He was old enough to get beer at that time, so we'd go over and he'd buy some beer. And then we started exploring in the front seat of the car, and then there was the time that it didn't stop. And I lost my virginity without my consent. And I had the whole summer to figure out, what am I going to do about this? And I think that's when it started. I really got that wild wasn't safe, but pretending to be wild might be. And maybe this is true for a lot of you too. Maybe not as dramatic of a way, but there are these moments when something innocent about us gets hurt in some way. Maybe you find that what we used to call dirty magazines laying around the house, or you get caught with one, or maybe you're doing some solo exploration and mom walks in. And we all have these moments when we have these splits of ourselves. Esther Perel wrote a book called Mating in Captivity, and she talks about how we have this domestic self, and our domestic self wants to be safe, and it wants things to be predictable, it wants to feel secure. And that's the self that, we set up most of our relationships with, that self. We parent our children from that self. And then we have the erotic self. And the erotic self is like the total opposite. The erotic self wants unpredictability. It wants to feel not safe. It wants to be dangling on that edge. That's what enlivens the erotic self. And then we have this third element that I'm going to layer on top of that, which is the culture outside of us that tells us what is and isn't okay. And so it's not just something inside of us, it's something outside. It's outside of us, not just inside. So that's where, you have to choose. One day you have to choose. Are you going to be a good girl or are you going to be a bad girl? Are you going to be a nice guy or are you going to be a player? And I think these choices hurt us. I think that they rob us of really, really important parts of ourselves that we actually need. Somebody said earlier today, something about being our natural selves. What does that mean? And I came to realize that I didn't even know. Years later, that persona finally broke down. I was talking with a friend, and that talk, the women here, you all know that talk, the I need a man, why can't I find one talk? Does anybody know that one? I think some of us have had that talk and will again. And my friend, who was a guy, he hauled off, he looked at me, and he said my favorite opening line, you know what your problem is? You're like, oh, this is going to be good. I now don't care, but okay. He said, your problem is that you'd rather fuck a whole football team than be deeply intimate with one man. That one hit really, really hard. And I think it hit because it was true. That somewhere along the line, in this reaction that I had to a loss of the innocent wildness of myself, I gave in to a shadow wildness of myself, and I gave up something that I really needed. I needed safety. I needed intimacy. The funny thing is, safety and intimacy became my wild. How did that happen? So that really started a process of integration. I needed to be all those things. I really couldn't afford anymore to make these false choices that weren't even real. I couldn't keep choosing to be this or be this. I had to become everything. And that turned out to be the wildest thing of all. So a few weeks ago, and it's funny when I got here, a couple of you are like, yo, you look different, you look different. It's like, yeah, I know, I know. So a few weeks ago, I thought, my wild is drowning again. I got very set on domestic, I'm going to find a partner, and I realized I was parched. And so I thought, okay, open it back up. And started just, kind of playing with someone in some creative ways in sort of a edgier zone, and started feeling that lifeblood come back, and then and then it just hit that wall, where it went a little too far out. And I was so moved by John earlier talking about surrender, and saying what men want is surrender. And I know that what this man wanted from me was surrender. And I wanted to give that. God, I want to give that. And yet I also am whole enough now to realize that it wasn't safe. And that I can't just surrender because I want to. I have to wait and have that surrender when it's safe enough. I have to hold both places. And I think that it's finally becoming clear in my work. I call it integrated coaching. And sometimes we're so far ahead of ourselves, we don't even know our brilliance. And I get it now. I get what I'm here for. I'm really here to unite those places so that all of us can be completely whole and totally intimate and as absolutely wild as we were put here to be. Thank you.